We got a new episode here, the 20th episode of the Odds and End Zones podcast on the great Bleeding Green Nation Radio Network. I'm your host, Shamus Clancy, Deputy Sports Editor of PhillyVoice.com. I am joined, as always, by my boy Zo. Zo, how you living?
What's up, brother? Good to be here, as always. Good to, on this rainy Sweet 16 Thursday.
This is a perfect day for the Sweet 16. Again, for people not aware, I don't know when this podcast will come out. Maybe it's Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, Friday morning. We're recording late Thursday morning, so we have a whole slate of all of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games coming up for us. We also have, which will certainly recap, the craziest NFL offseason ever. I know we've talked about this earlier. We had an episode about the Carson Wentz going to Washington, Commander Carson, all that kind of weird, all the weird stuff I don't want to have on record saying on the podcast, but you definitely get what I'm saying here. Yesterday, it was the Tyreek Hill trade that came out of nowhere. I was out and about doing some writer, journalism, reporter stuff, talked with a couple national NFL media members, and even they had no inclination, no clue that a deal like this was going to happen, that Tyreek either wanted out. It seemed like the consensus was that following, again, another crazy trade, the two best wide receivers in the NFL got traded in the last 2 weeks. Yep. And we could put aside saying like Tyreek Hill, especially for people like me and you, we've talked about Deshaun Watson, how terrible he is. We have to, again, acknowledge what Tyreek Hill has done in his career, some issues with domestic violence and child abuse. He's not someone I would particularly want on the Eagles, whether you're a fan or to cover, akin to Deshaun Watson in that regard. But in a vacuum, in a blanket, you have to consider him a top 2 wide receiver. And I think the Adams trade and that huge contract he got was the impetus for Tyreek saying, hey, I want a deal like that. I want a bigger deal than that. Oh, yeah. And just because of the Mahomes contract, they are so hamstrung and couldn't give him that deal. And I was talking to my dad and some other people. It seems wild the way after what was that, the 2019 season, we automatically said the Chiefs were going to win 6 of the next 10 Super Bowls. Yeah. And because of the way contracts happen, because of just the parity that the NFL brings, you could be looking at a situation Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP in his second year as a starter.
Yeah.
And maybe he never makes it back. And that's not a fault of him. That's just the NFL.
And I honestly, I think it started with Christian Kirk.
Yeah,
he got his money, and guys saw that and were like, nah, I'm not taking pennies on the dollar now. Here's my, here's what Christian Kirk did last year. Here's what I did. I'm sure Andy Reid was not happy to see that deal because he knew exactly what that's going to look like. And I know, listen, just like any other business, just like any other professional business, at least, guys typically respect guys wanting to get paid. So as much as I'm sure Mahomes was pissed yesterday, I'm also sure that he can't begrudge a dude wanting to get his money, because more than likely this is his last, max contract. But I think that what we're seeing, at least this offseason, and at least from the Rams and from almost every team in the AFC, is it's becoming more like the NBA, right? Guys are asking out, guys are saying, ship me here, I want to go here. It's a lot more player empowerment, which I think is awesome. But I think it's also something that I think we're finding it so weird because the NFL typically has not been that way, right? It's always they're now operating in a way where, oh, maybe this max contract doesn't hamstring us as much. Maybe this dude having $40 million guaranteed in the books isn't as big a deal as we thought, because we can still go out and get that running back who's pissed off. We can go get that cornerback who wants a change of pace, or we can go get that linebacker who doesn't want to be on the East Coast anymore. I think that the Rams set the precedent for one way to win, which is cash all your chips in, and then in this case, your chips are your draft picks. Get as much talent as you can, and depend on your coaching staff to bring it all together. The Rams may not ever make it back to the Super Bowl, but that the blueprint exists for one season at least. You know what I mean? Like, and that's really all it takes. Like, if you're an owner and a GM, and part of your tenure is saying, all right, I bought you 3 NFC championships and 1 Super Bowl in 5 years. That's pretty damn good. You know, I'll take that. You know, so I think that's what we're seeing. I think that we're entering, in as far as the NFL goes, that phase of player empowerment where players are taking it more into their own hands now in terms of what they do, where they play, and how much control they have over what they get paid.
Yeah, and it's sort of the NBA-ification of the NFL. And I
Yep.
love the point you brought up with the Rams because it feels like, and maybe it's a little too reactionary, but it's been building over the last couple of years with the Rams that their head decision maker, Les Snead, seems to be almost a little bit revolutionary in changing the game in
Yep.
a way and being, again, on the forefront of saying, hey, we just built this insane stadium in LA. You want to live in LA, you want to play in California,
Right.
you want the glitz and glam, and you want to be on a team that's win now pilled, like we said in previous podcasts. That might be the way it goes going forward in the NFL. And I'm not going to exactly say, I mean, NFL is inherently a league that has more parity than all the other ones in the North American professional sports. But I'm wondering, and maybe some Eagles fans could be concerned in a way that could be getting in a way where it is NBA'd in the way that certain markets become premier destinations. And we see that with all these people going to the Rams. You see Tyreek Hill wanting to go to South Beach. You have situations like this. And maybe it's wrong because you see Deshaun Watson, who the Eagles were in on. Maybe they weren't in on, whatever that situation might play out.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Maybe we'll find out in a tell-all book in a couple of years. But he ends up in Cleveland. So maybe it's not exactly there yet, because certainly Cleveland isn't the most prominent destination in America, I would say. I think that's fair to say, even as someone who hasn't been to Cleveland, and I'm sure people in Cleveland don't have the highest opinion of Philadelphia, so maybe it's a wash. But you get what I'm saying there.
Yeah. And I think that – no, go ahead. Finish your point.
No, you go.
I think to piggyback and to expound a little bit, I think it also is you're finding a lot of these GMs starting to scramble, right? Because they don't know how to react. And I think we saw that yesterday. Like, I think we quickly saw the Chiefs be like, "Oh, dude, we can't pay you this. Like, we can't do 35 million guaranteed or whatever it is." And being like, "All right, like, look, you guys can go seek a trade. Like, we can't pay that." And then all of a sudden, the text gets out, and you got all of a sudden the Dolphins come in and say, "Look, we got 6 draft picks for you." Like, it happens really quick. And that I'll say, it's definitely become really reactionary. These past couple of weeks have been super reactionary. Yeah. Like tomorrow or today, the Seahawks are like, "Look, we'll listen to anything for anybody." I guarantee you the mill starts spinning about, the Eagles are offering a first, a second, and a third for DK Metcalf or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just become all of a sudden a super reactionary league. And I think what you're also finding is, like you said, the smaller market teams they're making their splashes early. They're not waiting. The Jacksonvilles, like they did everything. They went out and they got the Super Bowl winning coach. They got the guys who they want around their high profile, young quarterback, and the Browns for however we feel. Well, you know how we feel about that situation, but they went and got their guy, quote unquote. So I think we're really seeing it. They're becoming super reactionary, and it's starting with the smaller market teams outside of the Rams, making the splashes.
Yeah, and I think we are on the cusp of a new team building style because since the CBA was changed after there was a brief lockout or work stoppage in 2011, that changed the rookie contracts. There was a rookie wage scale, because then you went from a guy like Sam Bradford getting a contract as their first overall pick worth $50 or $60 million to the following year Cam Newton being the first pick on being on a fixed contract. I'm not going to say he's on a fixed income like he's a
right.
quote unquote normal person, but you get what I'm saying. And the Seahawks really pioneered that style because they hit on Russell Wilson in the third round. And he's not just making rookie money, he's making third round rookie money,
right.
which is dirt compared to all the other quarterbacks in the league. And nonetheless, still playing like a top 10 quarterback, even when he was that young and inexperienced at the NFL level. And then they go to the Super Bowl and win in 2013. They go back and win in 2014. They have these highly priced roster of these talented, great players all over around Russell Wilson, making this cheap contract. And the Eagles see that, and they replicate that formula in 2017 with Carson Wentz still in the second year of his rookie deal. They bring in all these big free agents in the 2016 and 2017 offseason. And obviously, Wentz wasn't the guy lifting the Lombardi trophy as the Super Bowl MVP at the end of that year. Right. But unquestionably, because of his performance and because of the contract he was on, the rest of the roster was allowed to be as talented as it was. And the same thing played itself out with Kansas City. And when Mahomes wins in his third year as a third year in the league, his second year as a starter, they win the Super Bowl. They're able to have this stacked roster around him. And when that second quarterback contract comes, it changes the complexion of everything. And you're looking at it in Green Bay with these monster deals that Aaron Rodgers is getting. And I'm never going to be like a guy that says like, oh, you have to be like Tom Brady and take pay cuts. First of all, Tom Brady has been getting paid on the side for the Patriots for a decade with all the TB12 workout stuff. Like that's almost common knowledge without being a super official thing. They're circumventing the salary cap. So it's a little BS there, but I'm never going to rag on a guy like Aaron Rodgers for getting his. It's good for himself. It's good for the players union. It's good for all these things, but it does create a situation where it's harder to build a team around an elite quarterback after his first contract. And I think we might be seeing a situation, not just the way that quote unquote star players are moving so quickly and rapidly around the league, but I think we're going to increasingly see teams moving on from quarterbacks who were day one and day two picks before they even get to that second contract, whether it's trades or they're saying, hey man, you go test free agency, we'll see what we do, because we're just going to draft another guy on day one or day two next year, and we're going to restock the cupboard around him, give out some nice fat contracts to the offensive line. We're going to draft a wide receiver with one of our other picks and have an impact immediate player and get some great defensive players. I think that could be a situation on the Eagles where maybe they don't like a guy in this draft. Maybe they weren't, whatever, and on Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, and they like Jalen Hurts this year. That's okay. Maybe make the playoff berth, and they're looking at, hey, do we want to give Jalen Hurts a second contract? No, so let's draft a guy this year. And if that guy's not just not a good quarterback, but not a super duper elite quarterback in that Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, Rodgers tier, we're just going to move on and repeat the same thing and make sure we have an elite roster around a quarterback. And we're going to have a good coaching staff in place to maximize a young quarterback. Maybe that's not Jalen Hurts, but again, I'm saying in a year or two, it could be someone else that's on a rookie scale contract, whether it's Bryce Young or whoever next year.
And I think that the impetus around all of that is just how confident are you in the rest of your roster?
Yeah.
Right. Because just like anywhere else, your confidence in the under half of your roster dictates how big a swing you want to take. Right. So like the Jalen Hurts is a perfect example because I think that we talked about this before. They're obviously not sold.
It's pretty obvious they don't think he's right. Howie says this, Nick says this.
Right.
We saw it all off season. They didn't want to commit to him as a starter. They're trying to do it this year. They want to build his confidence. Right. Clearly, the two of us and everyone around the team in the league couldn't speak highly enough of him as a person.
Right.
We love Jalen. We love what he brings to the table as a person, as a leader, the intangibles. Obviously, it's not all there on the field in terms of the arm talent.
Barely.
So they do want to make an upgrade. They're not stupid. If, Jason AAV knows it on Twitter, then everyone else knows around the web and in the actual NFL, right?
And to that, I think that also hampers how big a swing you want to take, right? Like it's also saying, the Eagles are in on this guy, out on this guy, on this guy. I totally think that it has affected just how conservative or just how liberal they want to be in decisions they make this year because they're just not sold on the head guy. So they want to, I'm sure that the idea is let's put some more talented people around him. Let's continue to Let's keep the offensive line, stacked, reloaded. Let's reload the trenches, and let's see, what he does with one or two more talented guys around him on offense, and a defense that can continue to take the ball away or take the ball away more. Personally, I still think they have a lot of work to do. This is a team that just hasn't been the most talented. They made the playoffs because of a weak division last year, and all that stuff has been rehashed. But I really think that in those terms, the fact that they are not sold on the leader, on the quarterback, is the reason they've been semi-conservative in the swings that they took. Now, does that mean that they'll be conservative on draft night? Probably not. I actually think they're going to be. They might be one of the biggest movers and shakers on draft night. We'll see.
Unquestionably, because it's how he makes moves. How he makes more moves than anyone.
Exactly. How he makes moves, and what he's good at, or I guess one of the things that he likes to say he's good at, he's always he likes to make moves for 2 or 3 years ahead, right? So we'll see.
Costanza-esque job security.
Right. Exactly. Right. So that's how he earned that extension. He likes to make sure he rehashes the moves he's made, 2 or 3 years ago to put him in this position now. So I don't think that this means that they'll, that they're done. They're probably done in free agency, outside of Zach Pascal, which is that's a leaf in the wind to me and to everybody else, it sounds like. But I personally feel like draft night's going to be a big night for them in terms of rebuilding or reloading the roster, at least the middle and bottom half of it.
Perhaps fortunate for Jalen, and maybe to the dismay a bit of the Eagles front office and decision makers and whatever you want to say, the ownership group. Really poor quarterback class, right, this year. And it could have been a situation where if Jalen performed worse than he did if he didn't lead the Eagles to the postseason,
right,
and they didn't have this historic rushing attack that he is the core nucleus for that, they would be in the market for a quarterback in the draft.
Yeah.
If it was a good quarterback draft.
Yeah.
Especially when they have those 3 first-round picks. They have more capital than anyone to go up and get what they want. It just happens to be a poor quarterback class to me. I don't really see anyone who jumps out. I mean, Malik Willis has the physical tools, and sometimes I don't even like the branding we get with quarterbacks. Malik Willis is black, so he has physical tools.
He's got the physical tools. Right?
Yeah, I've never spoken to Malik Willis as a person. He could be the most intelligent quarterback I've ever seen. You know what I mean? But from these outsiders, online draft Twitter, we don't know those things.
Right.
But from just seeing some highlights of his Liberty play, I didn't love what I saw. But seems like someone in that combine setting clearly has an unbelievable killer arm. Looks amazing, but someone, because of the competition level, from the little bit I've seen of him watching, I think I watched 2 or 3 Liberty games this year that I was betting on last fall. Didn't love what I saw, especially at that competition level. Kenny Pickett, he's the guy I kind of like the most, even though I don't think he's amazing. I'm not taking him at 15 or 16 or 19, and certainly not trading up for him.
Yeah. I
guess the hand size is the thing, but then sometimes I get weird when it's fun to get amped about the spider graphs on Mock Draftable, and they look amazing, like Jordan Davis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder if we're getting almost into phrenology, and we're oh, his hand's too small to play in the NFL. Do you know what I mean? It just seems kind of weird or off in a way. I don't know. I mean, Joe Burrow was supposed to have small hands. I mean, he looked like he turned out pretty good. And I guess
famously has small hands, right?
He almost retired because of it.
He almost retired because of his small hands.
and then I kind of mess around on more aesthetic things. Kenny Pickett, he wears a glove on his throwing hand. That's more of a concern about his. He probably does it because of the hand size to get a little bit of better grip. But that's more of a concern on a superficial level than anything regarding if he has baby hands or the hands of Charlie's uncle, the lawyer on Always Sunny Philadelphia.
Also, Jamar Chase can't catch. So.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to catch an NFL football. It's not the same as a college
football. He doesn't have the route tree.
Justin Jefferson's he doesn't know how to run outside routes.
Right,
so you can't draft him.
Justin Jefferson's pure slot guy. Right. I think.
Do you think they would draft a guy? I mean, by a guy, I mean a quarterback.
I agree.
I just think it's just not the class for it. It's just not the class for it.
I just don't think so. I think it honestly would be. it would be pretty weird to spend one of those picks on a quarterback. I just don't think you need to. And I just don't think that any of those guys warrant it, especially given if you have – this is a weird class, not so much in the sense of there's no good players. There's a ton of great players. And this is actually specifically really good draft if you need defense. There's probably between 11 and 15 guys from that national championship Georgia team that are NFL players. They went to the combine and they tested through the roof. So, if you get to 15 and you got your choice of Jordan Davis, Kobe Dean, and, two of those tall and rangy Georgia safeties, like, I just don't see how you don't take two of those four back to back. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see it. You need so much help on the middle and the back end and the line of that defense. I just can't see how you don't shore up that side of the ball too, because realistically, that helps your quarterback more than anything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if you can't go out and get the other kind of weapons that you want on offense, the least you could do is make sure you have a defense that can get the opposing offense off the field and back into the hands of your quarterback, so they can do what they need to do, or at least try to do it. Like that's just as big as help if you already are going to be shorthanded on the offensive side of the ball, talent-wise.
Yeah, and we acknowledge Jalen isn't the most talented passer of all time, but I don't think it's – I'm about to say guarantee because nothing's guaranteed, but I don't even think there's like that high of a likelihood any of those guys will have a more tantalizing first 2 years as a pro. Maybe Malik Willis, maybe Kenny Pickett, who knows, Carson Strong. To me, it doesn't seem worthwhile to just restart everything. Maybe you want to just – if it's in a sense where you just want to restart the rookie quarterback contract, that makes a little bit more sense to me. But are you going to set your franchise back 3-4 years because you're waiting it out for a guy who's not the guy? Maybe you're doing that already.
Right.
Why even get further back into the mix there? I really want Jordan Davis. Maybe it's like it seems more of a fun pick or anything, but it comes down to me. People are saying, like, you can't take a run stuffer that early, but I don't think he's just a run stuffer. He was the best player on the best defense, best collegiate defense that I have ever seen. That's not just because he's a run stuffer. He can't be blocked just by a center. He can't be blocked just by – it just – physicality-wise, it just can't happen. Even, obviously – the guards at the NFL level are better than the guards at Kentucky or Vanderbilt or those things. But he's demanding a double team every time he's out there. And to think that he can't have any effect on the pass rush, which he did at times at Georgia, obviously he's the type of player where you literally can't run the ball in the middle of the field. That just wipes out an entire facet of an offensive attack. But when you look at the skills he brings in terms of what he ran or did this 3-cone drill at the combine, the speed and athleticism is apparent. He's not, the Jared Lorenzo of defensive tackles out there. And someone threw out a Mike Mamula comp, not in terms of play style, but just the buzz around the player because of what he did at the combine. Mike Mamula played at effing Boston College. Jordan Davis, as I said, was the best defensive player on a national championship team that had the best defense I've ever seen in my 20 years watching.
In the best conference in football.
And the best and a better conference than the NFC East.
Right. And I just think that I also think it's a huge slight to him to even make the comparison, because he wasn't just a 1-year wonder. The guy's been there for 3 years and he's been absolutely crushing everything put in front of him. The one thing they asked of him last year was to lose weight. He came in to spring ball before last season at his lightest and his most athletic, and they were all blown away. Like, just go through the interviews, and they were just all like, he does everything you ask him to do. The guy is he's supremely coachable. He's so good at what he does, and he stays on the field. Like, he's a 4-down lineman. He's not.
Yeah, people are like, oh, like, let's see how he does in the third quarter when he's like tired. Get that, like, the lazy fat guy label off this. Like, something that both me and you could probably attest to a degree. But that just does not apply to him.
It really doesn't. And also, when all of a sudden is it a bad thing that even if he is just a run stopper, the teams don't run the ball? Like, do you just
also
signed,
if he's on the field on a passing down, you have to just put two guys on him. Do you know what I mean? He's going to collapse the pocket even if he's not the guy that's racking up sack numbers. And maybe you get the defensive end from Florida State with one of the other picks with 15 and 16, and Jordan Davis is crashing the pocket from the middle of the field, and then you have Josh Sweat and Johnson just running wild on the quarterbacks. That sounds like an enticing combination.
And you just gave a gigantic contract to your quote unquote new middle linebacker. Like, you don't think Hassan Reddick would want to see nothing but a little running back standing in front of him if he's got his nose tackle taking up two offensive linemen? Like, why not make life easier on everybody else and also draft the premier nose tackle in the draft? Like, you just gave Fletcher Cox $14 million. So it obviously means something to you to have a space heater in the middle there. So like it would be the ultimate passing of the torch to have Jordan Davis spend a year with Fletcher. You know what I mean? Like,
and then you have for the next 7 years Milton Williams and Jordan Davis.
Right. Like, make life easier on yourself. I just don't think that I think draft talk it gets so, I know you're about to get into it, because you guys actually have to cover it, but like it gets so bogged down. Everything is so like,
the draft should happen earlier because everyone just talks in effing circles and it becomes nonsense speak by
that's what I'm saying. Everybody talks in circles after a while, and then draft night comes and everybody's just sick of it. We just want to hear the picks at that point. We've already heard it. We've heard what they can do, what they can't do, what Kuiper thinks, what ESPN thinks, what the guys from NFL Network thinks, whose mom says don't send him to Baltimore, whose dad wants him to go to Miami. Like, dude, like, we've heard all of it. We get it. We're just ready for the picks on draft night. So I totally understand when people are just like are tired of listening to draft talk.
He reminds me of John Henderson was like the biggest person on the planet.
Yeah. That video of John Henderson getting slapped.
That's the best. That's like the best sports video.
It's the best video ever. Yeah.
If you have to, don't look it up. Like, if you're not familiar with it, Jaguars defensive tackle, Pro Bowler, early 2000s, John Henderson wore number 98. Just seems like the craziest, most MF ever. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of John Randall in that way, even though John Randall rushed more so from the outside. And he would just get this Jaguars assistant, staff, coach, whatever, to just smack the whatever off of him like he was Papa Okafor to get him amped up for the game. And like, I would be scared to imagine John Henderson asking you to like slap the crap out of him. I'd be terrified. That kind of reminds me one of our growing up, one of our like the crazy kid growing up in our friend group, like the kid that was the most fighter, whatever thing. Yeah. In high school, they were all the Roman crew. Obviously, we went to the prep, but they were telling me like some days he's like, dude, I'm so tired. Can you just like punch me in the face to wake me up? And like, you will lose your mind if we punch you in the face just now.
Like the funniest part is him saying that's not hard enough. Like the first time he's like, come on, Joe, like that's not hard enough. And then the dude just hauls off the second and third time. It's great. It's honestly, you should watch that video if you're ever having a rough morning. It's the greatest video ever.
That's something you watch when you wake up the first Sunday of week 1 and it's like 8 a.m. You're making the bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich in the kitchen. You got a mimosa going, and then you watch that video to get your hands.
And you're ready, right? It's game day, week 1. It's still like we're in that in-between phase. So like it's not 90, but it's like 76 degrees.
Yes.
And like you're
got the jersey and shorts combo.
Yeah. Jersey and shorts on. You're ready to hit down to the lots, and the last thing you do in the Uber is watch that video. You're like, all right, I'm ready. Like you're ready. Yeah. Put the shades on. Let's go.
He just seems like the coolest guy to have on a team. Like,
for sure. Like he's.
And I think if they're rushing 5 with Reddick as the Sam Blitzer, that I think is going to. We talk about Jonathan Gannon. He doesn't have good players in his team. I think Jonathan Gannon is better than the average casual, and not saying like the way NBA Tour talks about casuals. Just mean like the NFL inherently has more casual fans than any other fan base.
Yeah,
it's a once a week affair. We like defensive coordinator stinks, and I get that. I've said that different times about every Eagles defensive coordinator besides Jim Johnson. But I think once he gets a guy who's a huge schematic fit, and as much as we love Hassan Reddick, he's a Temple guy. He's from the area, from here, Camden. Seems like he was a walk-on at Temple. Seems like he has that grind and that story that we adore, especially in this Philly area. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier before the show with like the Temple Pro Day stuff. And to have him, he seems like the perfect, I don't want to say like chess piece and queen and rook. Those are such cliches. But he seems like the perfect fit for Jonathan Gannon. If they're rushing 5 with whether it's Fletch or Milton Williams or Hardgrave or Jordan Davis, and you have Josh Sweat, you have whoever else on the outside, that's a monster attack. And also, the way that that second level of the defense has been so terrible forever, they might really have a nice front seven this year.
And, the front seven dictates everything else because they haven't been able to make the upgrades they want to make in the secondary. And it's a secondary outside of Slay that needs some help, and like you build that front seven up to where it's past admirable. Like you need a front seven that's going to put some pressure on the quarterback, get some sacks, and make life really rough on opposing quarterbacks. Like,
they did not do that last year. They did not do that last year. For the team that has so much resources poured into their defensive line, they did not do that. And I think they need, and it sucks, the David Ojabo, I don't want to mispronounce his last name. I'm not privy to that ultimately. But, just the way we talk about in the draft, because you read someone's name online, you watch clips of them online. Yeah, sometimes you don't even, it doesn't click in your head. But that ACL tear, he was my favorite edge guy in this class. And if he was there at 15, it seemed like the biggest luck ever to take him. And it's such a shame, and more of a shame than anything for him and his pro career. And I hopefully he has a nice, healthy career, is able to do this, whether it's with the Eagles, wherever he goes. I'm not taking away from essentially a life-changing moment injury for him, but from a perspective of someone who covers the Eagles or Eagles fans, whatever you want to say, that really sucks.
Yeah, for sure. And especially with everybody getting the two leaders of that line getting long in the tooth. Like, who knows what this rehab is doing to BG? Like, who knows, how he'll come back.
I forgot about him when I was mentioning it, just because BG is, a top 5 Eagle ever for me in terms of favorites, which I think everyone would be. It's close to a consensus amongst Eagles fans, especially of our generation.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's a catastrophic injury, and no one would surprise me more to come back for that and still be an absolute dog than BG, but it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. And it's tough because, in this town, we've seen it with Ryan Howard. Once you do it once, it's really easy to do it again on the other side. Like those are injuries that unfortunately tend to take a toll on the other half of your body. Like you spend so much time strengthening the one half, at the other side, and similar to ACL injuries, the other side tends to weaken. So we don't even know. Again, he's top 5 to I'm sure all of us in terms of Bird's lore, but we have no clue what he's going to look like when he comes back.
I think we're not that neither of us is a medical professional. Right. The science class I took in college was Intro to Astronomy, and got like a C-, and then that's the lowest grade you could have gotten passing. That was the last final I took. Look, another quick aside, but I think it's funny. I took time off from Penn. I had to go back and do one semester, and I had to take like the math class. I had to take all the hard classes that I pushed off taking the entire time, the math and science class. And the first test, I get the Intro to Astronomy. Do a little bit of studying. Obviously, I'm 23, not really in student mode anymore. Get back at everything gets curves and everything, but I got like a 37 on the test, and I was like, all right, well, this is untenable. So I emailed the person, hey, can we have a little chat or whatever? And so I go to his office. It's in like the most rinky-dink opposite side of campus building, and go up to his office. He has like a wait outside because someone else talking to me. Goes in. He has like a basketball on his desk because I guess it's like one to be like the cool guy, or also like physics, like gravity. So I go down, I sit in the chair and I pick up the basketball and I put it in my lap. And I was like, and I had the test in my other hand. I was like, listen, I took a bunch of time off of school. I don't have any money to pay for another semester. What's it going to be like? And he was just like, basically like, just come to class and like do the homework and like take the test and you'll be okay. I'm like, are you sure? And he was like, I was like, I'm probably not the only person who said this to you. And he's like, no, you're not. Like, this happens literally every semester. We have people like you. I was like, okay. And then that was my last time on campus as a Penn student. The last thing I had to do was take the final in that class. And, we got like 100, like he gave us 100 things to study for the test. I memorized like 50 of them. And obviously the other 50 was what was on the final. So I'm like taking the test. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know any of this. And I hand it in and like he's waiting at the top and I make sure I give him like a really nice handshake. Like, thank you so much for the semester. I learned so much. Like, this was great to end my Penn career with this. Like, good luck with the rest of the scholastic year. You can get like a C+. But I was a little nervous that I was like, imagine like the time off and then back. I'm like, oh, I finally graduated. And it's like, oh, actually, you have to do another semester next year and retake Intro to Astronomy.
They're like, nah, dude. Yeah, they're like, we'll see you
Probably
in September.
not. Yeah.
We'll see you last week in August because you're taking physics again.
I think the only thing I remembered is why the sky is blue. That was like the one thing, like he said it every class. And he was like, you have to know that like in real life, why the sky is blue. And I only kind of remember it.
That's probably the one thing I would take away too is like, I don't care about anything else aside from why the sky is blue. Everything else, I please keep to yourself.
Do you remember there was these crazy, I don't even know because I did terrible in the class, like comets or like light shows that were happening in like 2017. Like people always like trying to get into this. So that happened at the time. And that was like the big, like he almost changed the curriculum based off that. And obviously I don't even remember what that thing was called or what it was because it was so long ago. It was 5 years ago.
I definitely remember that. Yeah.
I don't know. I was supposed to go watch it, I think, but that didn't happen. I got paired up with a girl to do a project in like the telescope range, like to look for that. Didn't get the number. I didn't ask. I should have.
Really? You know what?
Yeah. It was one of those things that obviously things worked out 100 percentile best outcome in my life relationship wise. So it's for the best. But it was one of those things where I walked out and I was like, oh, like that was a thing. You blew that. And then like in the class is one that had like 200 or 300 people in it. So it was impossible to like sit next to the girl and find her in class. So I'm glad I didn't find her. I'll say that. I'm glad I didn't find her.
That intro text could have been like, oh, the sky is beautiful tonight, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you ever know why the sky is blue? That's a good transition to the tourney, I think.
Yeah.
All right. That works. I love my soon-to-be wife. I think it was just hilarious. Some of my previous pre-Ashley romantic escapades, I think, are hilarious in retrospect, and I'm happy for the failures because it brought me to true happiness.
The story.
That's everyone's story, right?
It's everybody's story. Like the failures are literally what you built your success on. You look back.
That's the Howie Roseman mentality.
Yes, that's what gets you the extension. You look at all the failures.
All right, so we're talking on late Thursday morning, getting to be Thursday afternoon at this point. So Sweet 16 this weekend. Obviously, we are a gambling podcast to a degree. I don't necessarily want to tackle these Thursday games too much because it might be irrelevant by the time you're listening to this. But we have Arkansas +9.5 against Gonzaga, Nova -5 against Michigan, Texas Tech 1 point in favor against Duke, Houston 1.5 dogs versus Arizona. I like Nova. I like Houston. So they're probably both going to lose. I did a small parlay on Houston money line and Nova -5.
I like Houston. Arizona.
Are they the best 5 seed in the history of sports?
I would say so. They're tough.
I don't understand why. Just because they were playing in what the AAC or whatever?
AAC, yeah.
Yeah.
Their conference is weird, but they're tough.
Yeah.
They're really tough. They're big, they rebound, and they play defense for all 48 minutes.
They're grinders. And not like the dorky white guy mid-major way. Those dudes are like legit amazing defenders and tough.
The one thing about Arizona though is Arizona also has, they're like a typical Arizona team that's been good. They're really athletic. I mean, they got guys that fly up and down the court, and they can score a lot of points. They will get. You'll appreciate this. They'll get out rebounded mostly every game though. Like another professional team that we know.
Big Sixers energy.
Right. So, but Arizona, Houston's tough. But I would not. No disrespect to Arizona though. I think Arizona is, as a 1 seed is, they earned it, and they can score and they can fly. It's going to be a really fun game. But I think that it'll be interesting though, because I think Arizona is going to have to impose their will a little bit, because Houston is going to come out and punch them in the mouth. Like, they might literally punch somebody in the mouth on Arizona. Like, that's how tough.
I would, Jimmy Butler style.
Right. And Nova and Michigan. I do like Nova. Michigan has a big that I'm not quite sure that Nova has anyone who can guard.
Yeah, Michigan. So someone eventually has to have a big that just punishes Nova size wise.
Right. So we might run into that. I think that Nova's guard play and their defense is good enough to win, but I will be interested to see how they react to how Michigan throws those bigs at them, because their one center is really, really good and really skilled, and he scores a good chunk of their points. So I don't think it'll be a walk in the park for Nova at all, but I obviously wouldn't be surprised if they pulled away like they typically do in the last 3 or 4 minutes.
Friday, we have the East Regional, and I guess that's the South.
Yeah.
I will be in attendance at the Wells Fargo Center for PhillyVoice.com. I've never been to a March Madness game in my life. Will be attending one. And what's great is that the team that's sponsoring it is My Penn Quakers.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yes. Got a new sport code in, Craig Sager style.
What time are you heading down there?
I'll probably get there like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I want to get there early and soak it up.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah.
I mean, we'll have UNC there. Do you think MJ will be there?
Yeah. So I
don't think I'm allowed to ask him for a selfie, nor do I think would he take one with me? But I might have to. I might get I would get my press credentials revoked if it meant I had like a courtside pick with me and like a jacket and tie and MJ.
I saw them practice, dude. I saw them practice the last time that the East Regional was in Philly. I saw North Carolina practice. Roy Williams was their coach. It was, dude, so many. You'll see. North Carolina travels really well. I mean, they travel like you'd expect a blue blood to travel. They travel very well. I would imagine this weekend, at least for your purposes, you're going to see a ton of UNC and a ton of St. Peter's. St. Peter's folks are coming down from North Jersey.
We'll get some UNC alums, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you definitely get some UNC alums.
Stack, Sheed, Vince. Could be a nice crew. James,
also,
big game James.
Depending on when they come, if UNC wins tomorrow, depending on how things look, Danny might be there. They're in LA. They're in LA until
they play Friday. He could be back Sunday.
Yeah, he'll be back Sunday. So it's gonna be a star-studded affair, I think, for sure.
I really want St. Peter's to win.
Me too. I love St. Peter's. I think they're.
I love it.
I think they're great.
Let's do an interview with their coach on Part of My Take this week.
Nice.
He was incredible, and the stuff he said about kids from North Jersey and New York City aren't scared of the Blue Bloods or Kentucky, and he was saying all this stuff like, what do you say to your kids? Like the stuff he was saying in the interview were awesome. They're like, what would you say to your kids to hype them up if they're playing Kentucky? And he's like, if I need to have a hype speech for these kids when they're playing the University of Kentucky, then they shouldn't be on the floor. Some of these kids think they should be at Kentucky.
Right.
And this guy was just amping me up. Like I was getting like effing like jacked walking to the subway listening to him.
Well, he used to play for Seton Hall.
Yeah, he was like the last North Jersey school to make or just Jersey school, I should say, to make the Sweet 16 was a Seton Hall squad that he led.
That he led.
So he's getting that. He's getting the Seton Hall job in like the next 2 years, right?
Oh yeah, he'll have probably.
I think I could see him, and I think he's amazing. I could see him ending up at a near blue blood.
He's taking the Shaka Smart.
Yeah, I was literally about to say he seems like the next Shaka Smart.
Shaka took VCU, Texas. Now he's got Marquette. Like he's a guy. I would not be surprised if Shaheen Holloway turned into that guy. He just some guys just have it, man. Sometimes you realize that what you have is special. And obviously, look, once that time comes, it's probably not going to be after this tournament, but a blue blood or another, a mid major is going to come calling, and he's going to roll, and they'll thank him for everything he does. Like, dude, the amount of notoriety. And
he changed the complexion of that school's, not the athletic program, 1,000%. The entire university's future.
1,000%.
AMDG.
Always and forever. Forever makes you rain.
Purdue doesn't scare me at all. They were like the most inconsistent Big Ten team possible. I didn't take the line in this game. Maybe I do tomorrow or whatever, but plus 12.5 is a lot. And I get there a 15 seed going against a 3, but it's a cliche. But like the seeding doesn't matter anymore once you hit the Sweet 16.
At this point, seed doesn't matter.
Seeding doesn't matter at this point.
You've already seen it. They're not scared. If this was the first round, sure, but they're not scared. And also, Purdue could have, should have, would have lost last week. Yeah. I mean, they got Jaden Ivey, who, for all my money,
could be best player in the court in any game, right?
In any game, he's probably going to be he is going to be a top 3 pick. He should be a top 3 pick. He definitely should be the first guard taken, board. And he's a guy who has worked on his jump shot in particular. He's gotten more athletic. He's big. So it's not going to be easy for St. Peter. I mean, it hasn't been easy for St. Peter's, but Jaden Ivey is not coming in to be part of a Cinderella story. Like he's a killer. So I'm excited to see the game, to see him play, because he is certainly he certainly will cut his off. But St. Peter's isn't scared. It's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way.
Is Iowa State Miami the least juicy Sweet 16 matchup ever?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Not to overlook what these kids have accomplished or anything like that, but I'm kind of glad that's the late game while I'll be at the regional watching one of the other games, because that's a game I'm okay missing. Yeah. Which means it'll be a double overtime.
It'll be right. It'll be triple overtime, of course. Right.
Yeah. I like Kansas minus 7.5. I think their region is the worst region.
Providence is admirable.
Ed Cooley's a good coach.
Ed Cooley's a good coach. Ed Croswell, prep guy. Shout out to him. But they might be a little bit outmatched. Kansas can shoot the lights out, and they got a bunch of veterans on there who've been through this a couple of times. So it might be tough sledding for the Friars.
Yeah. Is that for me? You got anything? I think that was nice. Did a little.
Yeah, that was good. I'm good. Everything. Watch the games tonight. Sixers tomorrow late. Tomorrow's going to be a late basketball night.
That's a 2:00 going to bed work game for me.
Yeah,
work night.
Tonight,
I'm not the sports I'm complaining about it. I feel like I'm a kid on Christmas because I hate that when people are just. I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve getting ready to go there tomorrow. Got a new sport coat. Got some nice New Balances that I ordered. I'm very excited.
That's so awesome, man. I'm so excited for you. I know it's going to be quite the experience. I've talked to people who've gone in a business capacity, and they've all said that it's something that everyone should aspire to. You at least got to go to at least one tournament game in your life.
Yes, I like it. Did you go in 2013?
I did. And that was.
Did you go Florida Gulf Coast one?
That was the last one. The last one I've been to. And it was, if thank you to I think I told Swaggy this last week too, but it was thank you to a buddy of mine from college. Him and his dad were going, and he had a third, and he was like, "Yo, if you're off, like me and my dad, you have a third ticket." I was like, "Dude, I'm gonna get off." Like I literally,
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah," I'm sick." like there was no debate.
I can't come into there. I think you got strep throat.
I was like, "Oh man, you won't believe. Must be allergies again." I'll see you guys on Monday.
Yeah.
Don't watch TV.
I need an antihistamine stat.
Right.
Don't look behind the Florida Gulf Coast cheerleaders. You won't see me. That's for sure.
You won't see me there. No way. Not at all.
All right, that works. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll probably do some Instagram stories and videos there. So if you want to catch up on what it's like being at the tournament in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center, follow me there. And obviously on Twitter too, at Shamus_Clancy. You can follow Zo on Twitter at tweets_by_Zo. Obviously, subscribe, leave us a nice 5-star review. If you could write one too, that's ideal. Bringing a lot of great coverage here. Should have a new From the Bleachers episode ideally next week. Just been getting crushed with the new work schedule with PhillyVoice.com, which I love. It's exciting, but I need to get back on that, especially with the draft coming up. I know we have a lot planned on the Bleeding Green Nation Radio Network for the draft itself, some instant reactions, a lot of good things. So stay tuned. NFL season, it just never stops. And that's the cliche. I'm not doing something like this league, this is dumb, but it speaks more so to the way that the content will be great continuously through the draft, through the summer, through training camp, to the regular season here on BGN Radio. All right. Talk to you later, bro.
Talk to you later, my dog. Have fun tomorrow.
I'll send you a picture of me and MJ.
Yeah. With his yellow eyes.
Ceiling is the roof, baby.